Hello, it's April from April's Home, and today I'm here with a special grocery haul. This is a project that I've wanted to do for quite some time now, and what it is a pantry haul. This is 150 of my favorite items for the pantry. These are all non-perishable items that I keep in stock in my house. I like to always have at least one of these of each item on hand, and in some cases, for some of the items that I use more frequently, I choose a number that I think will last us a little while. Like, for example, cream of mushroom soup and canned corn. I go through a lot of those. Canned tomatoes, so obviously I wouldn't have one on hand, I'd have at least a few on hand. So what I wanted to do was go to a store that most people, not everyone, but most people here in the US have access to, a Walmart, so that the price would be similar. And I wanted to buy one of everything that I consider one of my favorites for the pantry, one of each, to see how much that entire order would cost. So you can see here, I have my table full again. This time it is Pantry Favorites, 150 Pantry Favorites. I have organized them by category, and I thought that I would go through with 1 to 150 of my favorite items here, just to give you some ideas of what you might like to stock in your pantry. And just to point out, this is just pantry items. This is not the fresh food I buy. This is not the produce I buy. This is not the frozen food I buy. I also buy those things. So I do not eat all canned food or anything like that. We eat a lot of fresh food on a really regular basis. The reason I like to keep my pantry stocked is because these are all ingredients that make cooking meals incredibly easy. It makes it so you can pull together a meal with whatever fresh ingredients you have in your fridge or freezer, or the produce that you have. These are all things that help bring it together. These are things that you can grab sometimes for lunch or breakfast. And by having these items in stock in your pantry, it makes it so you don't always have to run to the grocery store if you're out of 1 or 2 ingredients, and it makes meal prep a lot easier. So this is just something I've always done. I've always had a nicely stocked pantry. And again, it makes cooking and preparing meals and meal planning a lot easier because all of the items that I need are typically on hand. 150 items sounds like a lot of items, but there are quite a few different categories here, as you'll see. But I thought I would narrow it down to the 150 because what I don't like to keep in stock are random things that perhaps I only use once a year. So those things are items that I would put on my meal plan and pick up at the grocery store when I need it. Some of these things might be different than the things you use, so you would obviously change the list for your preferences and what you cook. But these are the items that come up most often in my meal plans, and I'll explain that as I go along and share with you each of the items and why I chose them as one of my favorite pantry items. So the first 10 items that I always have on hand and always have for over the last 20 years in my pantry are Campbell's soups. I do know how to make my own white sauces and things like that with cooking, but for the sake of time, it is so easy to have a meal starter like cream of mushroom soup, cream of celery soup, tomato soup, cream of chicken, cheddar cheese, and French onion. Those are soups that I use in casseroles and recipes to kind of get them started and bring them together. So those are the first 6 on my list. And then also for lunches to have along with a sandwich, I love a few classic Campbell's flavors. I don't eat these all the time, but at least once a month I might decide to open up a can of soup to have with a sandwich. So I like the classic bean with bacon and split pea and ham with bacon. And just to point out, I will be sharing how much the total was. I'll be sharing with you on the list. There were about 5 things, I believe, that I couldn't find in Walmart when I was there. Split pea soup was one of those items that was out of stock, so I pulled it from my pantry. So just keep in mind the total of the Walmart order will be about $12 more because of the items that I did already pull out of my pantry. The split pea soup being one of those items. And then of course, classic chicken noodle. I don't really love chicken noodle, but occasionally when you're not feeling well, it's nice to pull out something simple like this chicken noodle soup. So I always like to have at least a couple cans on hand. And then beef with vegetables and barley is one of my favorites. So those are my little lunch soups. And then item 11 and 12 are beef broth and chicken broth. Of course, they make a lot of soup around here. And if I don't have time to boil up the bones or broth by myself, this is a great way to get that started in a jiffy. So those are always in my pantry. And then here we have some of the canned veggies. I mostly use fresh or frozen veggies, with the exception of canned corn and canned green beans. We grab for those quite a bit, but it's nice to have some on hand. So of course we have our green beans and our corn here. And I always keep a can or two of sweet peas around. A few cans of Veggies. This is really helpful in recipes like soups and things, just for a quick soup. It's got potato in it and everything. I love canned yams. They're good for the holidays and also just for a quick side dish. Some carrots, only just a couple cans of those just in case. I love to have artichoke hearts in the pantry. They're wonderful for pasta and pizzas. I love having black olives on hand, both sliced. I use these all the time with salads and taco nights. And then black olives, I like to set these out in a dish for people to eat, you know, at little family meals and things like that. I like to have diced green chilies and jalapeno peppers to add to soups and different other spicy recipes. And then a couple cans of whole potatoes are good to have in the pantry as well. I love to have green olives on hand also. I use these in different sandwiches and spreads and just toppings on pizzas and things like that, or just for snacking, the little green olives. And then I also bought these. This is sort of a treat. I love to have a couple little fun, fancy things like these. If you have company, you can set out a cheese platter in a jiffy and slice up some of your cheese, grab some crackers, and put out some olives. And these nice stuffed olives, blue cheese stuffed olives, looked really good. It's also nice to have some roasted bell peppers on hand. And then heading into the tomato category, we'll start with these. These aren't really tomatoes. This is a green chili enchilada sauce and a red enchilada sauce. I like to have those on hand so I can make enchiladas quickly. And then, of course, canned tomatoes. I love having a huge selection of canned tomatoes on hand. Put them in soups and casseroles and all sorts of things like that. So I have diced tomatoes, just classic diced tomatoes. I always like to have a can or two of those. I have some petite diced ones and regular ones. Rotel, of course, a little spicy. And then the Italian style ones, those are already flavored, so it makes your soup that much more flavorful, or your casserole. I love fire roasted tomatoes. I use these in pasta dishes and casseroles and soups. So definitely fire roasted. And then crushed tomatoes, those are wonderful. Tomato sauce and tomato paste. And then we have the canned bean category here. I like to have canned beans on hand. I also like to cook with dried beans, but those take a really long time to prepare. Oftentimes you'll have to soak them overnight or do a quick cook method, which is still a couple of hours. But if you just want some black beans in a salad, or you want to whip up some hummus with garbanzo beans, or just add some beans to a chili or a soup or casserole, it's nice to have them in a can ready to go. So I like to have black beans, pinto beans, navy beans or white beans, garbanzo beans, chili beans. These are like pinto beans with some seasonings. And then dark red kidney beans. We also like to have pork and beans on hand, and baked beans. And then these are not something I normally keep in my pantry, but while I was shopping, I realized they had canned lentils. I'd never seen those before. I love lentils, so I thought I'd try that as well. It might become a new pantry favorite. And then, of course, refried beans. Again, I recently learned how to make these from scratch from the bean. It was quite a process, though. They were really delicious, but it's still nice to be able to have a can to grab in a hurry. Then I also got some pink beans. So those are the bean category of canned beans. And then I like to have some canned fruit. So I love canned fruit. It's nice to serve with cottage cheese or Jell-O, or just a little side dish of them. A lot of times they go into a recipe. I cook with a lot of pineapple on pizzas or in salads, or in different baked goods. So for canned fruit, I like to have peaches on hand, pears on hand, and fruit cocktail. Then I always have all four kinds, if I can keep them in stock. I like to have at least all four varieties of pineapple: the tidbits, the chunks, the crushed pineapple, and the pineapple slices. I also like to have cranberry sauce and maraschino cherries, mandarin oranges, and applesauce, which is good as a side dish and as a baking ingredient. So those are the canned fruits I have. Occasionally, when I can find them, I do like to keep a can or two of canned plums and canned cherries. Not the sweet maraschino cherries, but the just actual canned cherries. They're getting tougher to find, but I do like to have a can or two of those on hand. But these are the basic ones that I always make sure I have at least one of in my pantry. The next category up here are my canned meats. Again, I prefer fresh or frozen meat, but in a jiffy, it's nice to have some canned meats. Also, some of them, like tuna, are the main way that I use them. So let's see, I have here a can of chunk chicken breast and a can of tuna, both extremely useful, and some canned salmon here. I like to have a can or two of corned beef on hand. Can of Spam, it's kind of a classic. And then again, these are kind of old-fashioned classics, as are the next products I'll show you, but the dried beef for making cream chip beef on toast, and then Vienna sausages, which I grew up eating and they're fun to snack on from time to time. And then I also like to have deviled ham. I make a sandwich spread out of this. And then I thought while I was there that I would try out the chicken variety. I've never had that before. So figured I'd add that to the pantry and see if it's a new favorite. But these meats here, I always like to have tuna, chicken, salmon, spam corned beef, some dried beef, Vienna sausages, and some deviled ham. Then I have a small category here of ready-to-go meals. These are like canned raviolis and things like that that are good to have on hand for either a quick lunch or if there's a storm and you need something ready to go in your pantry. So I like to have a few of those. I like to have a can or two of corned beef hash. I always have quite a few cans of chili. We love chili around here. This is great for lunch or on hot dogs. And then a can or two of ravioli. Got some SpaghettiOs and meatballs. I like to have this chunky soup. You don't even need to add water. It's just good to go. It's a nice little meal there. And then this is Dinty Moore's chicken and dumplings, but I put this here as a place marker for canned beef stew. I couldn't find it in the store. They were all out. So I pulled this from my pantry. This is about the size of beef stew that I would have in my pantry. This is not something I normally keep in stock. It's something I just purchased to try, but so like a can or two of beef stew is good. And also me and my husband also really love canned tamales. It's something we grew up eating and enjoy eating from time to time. So again, it's good to have a few ready-to-go meals in your pantry just in case there's a winter storm that knocks out the power. You can have those ready to go. Then the next category over here are condiments. I love condiments. My fridge is full of them. I like all the different flavors, but I don't keep them all in stock. Most of the, more unique ones are just I have one in the fridge, and if it runs out, I go and get more. But I do like to keep in stock ketchup and mustard and barbecue sauce and mayo. Those 4 things I use in cooking and for recipes, so I always need a backup. Especially in the summer, I like to make sure I have an extra can of sweet and dill pickle relish for barbecues and some sliced pickles. I also put sliced mushrooms here. They should probably be in the vegetable category. I love my green and red taco sauces, and then salsa. I always like to have salsa on hand, again, for recipes, and then also to pull out for company. If company's over, like this weekend when we had the family over, before dinner was ready, I set out some chips and salsa, and everybody was able to snack while I was getting dinner ready. So I always like to keep a can or two of regular salsa, and then another variety of salsa. This is a one that I purchased in my last grocery haul, the pineapple tomatillo salsa. I actually went back to Walmart and bought 3 jars. This is the salsa that I put out at our last family dinner, and it was a hit. I absolutely loved it, so I thought this would make a wonderful pineapple tomatillo chicken recipe, and then I also wanted more to have on hand for chips and salsa. And then also for those chips, it's nice to have a jar of queso on hand. That way you're ready to go if company stops in. You can grab some chips and salsa, have a snack for everyone ready to go. And then into some of the other just cooking essentials, I got some white vinegar and apple cider vinegar. It's good to have a couple of those on hand. Of course, you should always have an extra salt and pepper. And then I like to keep a fully stocked spice cabinet, but I don't get backups of the spices except for these few. I always have a backup of garlic powder, minced onion, and cinnamon. Because salt, pepper, cinnamon, garlic, and onion, you can cook just about anything with that. If you have an extra favorite spice or seasoning, you definitely want to have an extra on hand. Probably the next one I would include would also be like an Italian seasoning or a seasoning salt. The next category of pantry items that I always like to have an extra of on hand are my baking ingredients. So I always like to have flour and sugar, brown sugar and powdered sugar. I always like to have some cooking oils, so we've got our vegetable oil. This is just classic olive oil, not extra virgin olive oil. I use this for like sauteing, of course the vegetable oil for baking, and Crisco for baking. So it's good to have an extra pan spray on hand. You'll need some baking yeast. I like to have cornmeal and cornstarch, vanilla, baking powder, and baking soda. Baking soda has so many uses, so it's always good to have a few of those on hand. Then I like to have a few baking mixes on hand, some pancake mix, some muffin mix like blueberry or corn muffin mix, a little cake mix here. I usually use, Betty Crocker baking mixes, but I love these little tiny Jiffy golden yellow cake mixes. So it's nice to have a brownie mix on hand for company, or just a quick dessert. And then also pudding mixes. I chose lime and chocolate here, but I usually keep a few of each one, different flavors on hand to make salads and recipes. And of course, baking chips. I got some chocolate chips and mini chocolate chips. I usually also like to have a pack of white and butterscotch. And then back to some of these other ingredients here, just for cooking. I like to have soy sauce. That kind of goes in with the condiment category. It's always good to have pasta on hand, as well as pasta sauce. My favorite, tomato and basil by Barilla, and then a can or a jar of Alfredo sauce. I don't have many of these on hand, but I like to have my favorites. I love pearled barley and rice for soups and casseroles, pinto beans, black beans, lima beans, lentils, and split peas for split pea soup. For quick side dishes, I love these Idahoan gratin potatoes. A box of instant mashed potatoes. This is good for making a quick topping to a cottage pie or shepherd's pie, or thickening a soup like a cream soup, so it's good to have that on hand. And box of stuffing. We don't eat many of these pasta side dishes. I usually make something from scratch, but again, for quick fix, some pastaroni or rice-a-roni, and then classic mac and cheese. Also thought I would try these out. I've never tried these before. Thought this would be an experiment to see if I like them for the pantry. This is not included in the 150. I just thought I'd point out the ready rice. Regular rice is a pantry favorite, of course, but these little quick rices might be interesting. Of course, we love oats. My husband eats them every morning for breakfast, so we always have oats on hand. Always like to keep an extra box of our favorite crackers. Saltines, we always have those. Ritz, I use those in meatloaf, and also just for cheese and crackers. I like to have these on hand for a quick cheese and cracker tray. Some cheddar crackers for lunches or snacking. Same with chicken and a biscuit. It's good to have some cereal, an extra box of cereal, perhaps some granola bars, and some cereal bars. Then in the snack category, I do like to have a few snacks and candies on hand. These are the ones I chose this time. It's nice to know that if you're craving something sweet, you can go to the pantry and find a little candy or a little treat rather than perhaps going out and getting something. So this is a new Kitkat that I thought I'd try out. Apple pie Kitkat. That sounds really fun. So I got enough for the family to try out. And I chose some York Thins for the candy dishes. Then I chose bottle caps. These were a favorite when I was a kid, so I thought those would be fun to have in the pantry. And this is like a little pastry treat. I don't always choose Hostess, but I do like to have something like this, like a little coffee cake or a little honey bun or something that I can pull out to have with coffee, just either for company or for myself if I'm craving something. Also, it's nice to have some fancier cookies on hand. Again, when company comes over, if you don't have time to bake anything, you want to get out something yummy to have with your coffee or tea. A nice bag of Pepperidge Farm cookies. I love these. Chessmen would be good. My last haul, I bought the Biscoff cookies to try, and I wanted to try the vanilla as well. So I got those also for the little cookie category and snack category in my pantry. And going along with the snacks, I got a bag of little mini chips for lunches. I like to hang those on the door inside my pantry. And then a bag of tortilla chips for all that salsa and queso. Of course, it's also good to have some juice on hand. I like to have some juice. My favorite is cran grape or cran pineapple. So these are the little jars. I thought those would be good for the pantry. And then, of course, water. You always need some drinking water on hand. It's important. Also for snacking, we love to have popcorn, just regular popping popcorn. Me and my husband make up a batch in our air popper, and it's a great snack for movie night. And I got some peanut butter. I don't eat peanut butter, but I got some to have on hand just in case my husband or if my kids are over and they want some. So I got some Peter Pan peanut butter, my favorite orange marmalade for my toast at breakfast, molasses for different recipes, honey to have on hand, syrup is always good. We like to always have syrup, an extra syrup, and then some evaporated milk, just in case you need it to bake something. And then same with a few packs of instant dry milk, just in case you're out of milk and you don't want to run to the store. We like to have raisins. We put those on oatmeal, cranberries, and dates for different cookie recipes and baking recipes. And then lastly, the drink category. We always have a few extra coffees in the pantry. We definitely don't want to run out of that. I don't want to run out of my tea. This is my favorite tea. I drink a bag or two of that every day. And then some spice cider, especially for the fall and winter, and marshmallow hot cocoa. My kids like these, so I like to keep these up in the cupboard so they're always available when they come over. So that is my huge grocery haul here of all 150 of my favorite pantry items to keep on stock. I think I got just about every category covered here. I would love to know in the comments some of the things that you like to have in your pantry, some of the things perhaps I forgot that I should add to my pantry. And then two things that I'd like to share with you before I share with you the final tally, how much all this cost at Walmart. Was a big shout out and thanks to my husband who went shopping with me for this big haul of groceries. This was, again, at Walmart. It was a really hot day. The air conditioner was not on in the store. At least I don't think it was. It was really hot, and my husband was such a good help. He knows I'm really picky about my cans not having dents in them, and so he helped me with that, pick it all out. He helped gather a lot of these items off the list, and he made the trip go a lot quicker than it would have gone if it was just me by myself. So huge shout out to my husband who helped me with this project here. Thought that was really nice of him. I really appreciated that. And then also about my pantry, where do I keep all of these cans and groceries? I have a really small kitchen. I don't actually have a pantry, a traditional pantry in my kitchen. I have a few cabinets, so I keep one cabinet with baking goods, one cabinet with some of these dried goods and some of my seasonings, and then I have turned one of my hall closets into a pantry where I keep a lot of my canned goods and some of my crackers and extra oats and things like that. So one of these days, when I get this all put away and organized, I would love to share with you where I keep some of my pantry items. It's always a work in progress, though. I'm always rotating it. That's something you have to do. If you keep things in stock like this, you've got to rotate your items regularly. Make sure that you're using them up before they expire. So it's kind of a process, but I would love to show you my pantry someday. And you can do this even if you have a small kitchen or a small house. You just have to be creative where you put it, which is definitely what we have to do in this house. So that is my 150 pantry favorites. Now I'll go ahead and share with you how much everything cost. Okay, so here is my Walmart receipt. You can see it's pretty long. Again, there were about 5 items in all of this that were not accounted for on this list here. That would probably add maybe about $12 extra. But the grand total was $306.08. That sounds like a lot, but my cart was packed, and this is a lot of food that will make a lot of meals and get a lot of meals started. So I feel like that's pretty a pretty good price. Just for reference, we live in Oregon, about an hour. This Walmart was about an hour outside of Portland. So these are the prices here in Oregon. You can see a lot of these items came in under $1. There's quite a few in there, 46 cents, 58 cents. I tried to choose some name brands and some store brands. If it's a product that I don't care if I have a store brand, I bought the store brand. If it's cheaper, sometimes it's not. And in some cases, I bought the name brand if I know that the name brand is one of my favorites. So sort of a mixture of name brand and off brand. And that is how much it costs, $306.08. So those are pantry essentials to give you some ideas for building your own pantry, which I think is such a fun and good thing to do for your household. It makes meal planning and meal prep so much easier. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this pantry grocery haul. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe for more videos from April's Home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.